Matthew chapter 21, verses 1 to 11. Jesus enters Jerusalem. The number of the word that we'll feature in this section is 5614, Hosanna. And we will now go into the nouns, and that will be our Greek structure for this section. The nouns, here's our chart with two of the nouns that will appear in this section, a foal and olive tree. You can see these structures here appear in the analytical lexicon of the Apostolic Bible, along with a grammar in the front which explains everything. We'll go through the explanation of the nouns more in detail in coming sections, but right here it says it's a noun. If it was a pronoun, it would say pronoun, adjective, verb, and so forth. These are the main word structures in grammar. The parts of speech is what they're called. So this noun is always masculine, polos, a foal. The only reason it would be important to know this would be when you have a pronoun, to see if there's an agreement, because the pronoun would have to agree in gender, masculine. And the Apostolic Bible number is on the right, 4454. The first lemma word is called a lemma, is the nominative singular, always in the nouns. And then underneath are the words that appear in the Apostolic Bible in these forms. So polon would be accusative singular, which is what we will see in the section of this we're going through. Polos, nominative, and polus. Now, if the nominative didn't appear and it was up here, because it's up here, these words don't always appear in the Apostolic Bible. The ones underneath the first word do. This is like a dictionary word. If you looked in a dictionary, you'd find it. But the dictionary wouldn't tell you if it was past tense or future and all these other additional things. And the next noun is the olive tree, olive, elea, nominative, but this is feminine. And elea is also dative, because now we see here it's nominative and dative. So the top one's always nominative, but can be dative also. If it is, it'll mention it down below here. And then we have an accusative singular, the genitive singular, or accusative plural. You have to figure that out by the context. And then the genitive plural. So all of these are the beginnings of the nouns which we're going to be going through. It begins Ke ote igison is Ierusalima, and when they approached unto Jerusalem. Now Jesus had been in Jerusalem before. In Luke 2:22 it says, and when the days were fulfilled of her cleansing, that's Mary his mother, according to the law of Moses, they led him unto Jerusalem to render to the Lord, to make an offering to the Lord for the firstborn son. In Luke 2:41 it says, and his parents went each year unto Jerusalem to the holiday of the Passover. Now, did they take their children or not? Well, in Luke 2:42 it says, and when he was 12 years old, of their ascending unto Jerusalem according to the custom of the holiday, the child Jesus remained behind in Jerusalem. So they did take Jesus at 12. We don't know all the other times. They probably did take their children, but this is a story about Jesus remaining behind. The parents find him missing, go back, and he's in the temple and so forth. So now they are approaching Jerusalem. He left Galilee with a multitude of people. Actually, he left in stealth, not telling anybody, but then people saw him, and they gathered to him, and he went down. And as he got close to Jerusalem, more people came to see him, a multitude of people, it says. Ke ilthon is vis sphagi pros to oros ton eleon. And they came unto Bethphage to the Mount of Olives. Now, here up here is the map that we see that he went down, probably along the Jordan, got to Jericho. That was in the last section. And now he's over towards Jerusalem, almost into Jerusalem. As he comes in here, now he is by Gethsemane, the village of Bethphage, the Mount of Olives, and then he will go into the Temple Mount next. So he says, then Jesus apostile dio mathitas. Then Jesus sent 2 disciples, and disciples is underlined, means it's in another section. We studied that word. In verse 2, legon avtis, and saying to them, porefthite is tin komin tin apenante imon. Go into the town before you, probably Bethphage, ke evtheos evrisite onon dadimenon. Immediately you will find a donkey being tied. Ke polon met aftis, and a foal with her. Lysantes agagate me, having untied them, lead them to me. Ke eantis imin ipi ti, and if anyone should say to you anything, irite oti, you say that o kyrios avton krian eki, their master has need. Now the word kyrios in the Greek can mean the tetragrammaton of God. They call it Jehovah and Yahweh. I don't, but this is what some people call the Hebrew. But in the Greek, it's Kyrios, and it's also used for the Lord Isu Christo, the Lord Jesus Christ. And it also can be a important person. And here, Kyrios is Jesus, their master, has need. Now, whether they thought he's talking about God or Jesus doesn't say. And then in Mark 11, 1-11, the story goes a little bit more into detail where these men saw him untying the donkey, said, what are you doing? And they replied as Jesus told them to do. In verse 4, tuto they olon gegonen ina plirothi torithan dia to profitu legantus. Now this entirely came to pass that should be fulfilled the thing having been spoken through the prophet, saying. And the prophet, as we see down at the bottom, is Zechariah 9:9. And this is the beginning now of a quotation of Zechariah. And in Zechariah 9:9, it would have this in brackets showing that it's in Matthew 21:5. So it says, Ipate tithigatri Sion, say to the daughter of Zion. And it says, proclaim in Zechariah, Idu ovasolef su urkate si, behold, your king comes to you, praise, gentle. And then Zechariah says, just. Ke epivivikos epi onon, and being mounted upon a donkey. It doesn't say donkey in Zechariah, but a beast of burden. As it has here, ke polon, and a foal, eon ipozigiu, an offspring of a beast of burden. So a little bit different in Zechariah, but basically it's close enough. In verse 6, porephentus they imathite, and the disciples having gone forth, ke peisantes kathos prosetaxen aftis o Isus, and having done as Jesus assigned to them, igagon ton onon, they led the donkey, ke ton polon, and the foal, ke epethikon epano avton ta ematia Avton. And they placed upon them their cloaks. I think it would probably be the 12 disciples. Ke epekathison epano Avton. And he sat upon them. So wherever he was in the Mount of Olives there, and probably in the garden. And so now they put him on this donkey with their cloaks. He's going into Jerusalem. In verse 8, O they plistos oklos estroson iafton ta imatia in te otho. And the greatest part of the multitude spread out their own cloaks in the way or in the road. Those people that were following Jesus. A multitude, and they were putting their cloaks. So I don't know how far he's going, this is going on, but could have been all the way from the Mount of Olives. And it continues, Ali they ekopton klavus apo ton dendron, and others beat branches from the trees. Ke estroznun, and spread them out in the way, in the road. So they taking palm branches and so forth and laying them in the road, welcoming the king who is now coming into Jerusalem. In verse 9, Ide okli I proagontes ke I akoluthontes ekrazon, and the multitudes leading before and the ones following after cried out. So we have a lot of people going in front of him, following him, and probably the 12 disciples were in the middle. What were they saying? Legontes, Hosanna to io David, Hosanna to the son of David. And now here's another quotation. Evlogimenus o erchomenos in onomati kyriou, and that is in Psalms 118:26, possibly 25. Some Bibles have a different numbering of the Psalms. So they're saying a Hosanna. And in the Hebrew, I've seen it right here. It's the Psalm 118:25. And this probably is the word where it's save. Save us and deliver us. Something like that. So they are saying Hosanna, which means that in the highest, the one saving in the highest. The highest would be to them God, wouldn't be anybody else. So they are proclaiming him as the Messiah that was promised to come to them. And in verse 10, Ke iselthontes avtu is Jerusalema, and of his entering into Jerusalem, so now he's going through the gate, Isisti pasa e polis, all the city was shaken. They're hearing all this was going on. It wasn't that big of a city, really. Saying, Tis estin utos, who is this? With all these crowds of people coming in, putting these things down in front of him. It was quite a sight to behold. Ide okli elegon, and the multitude said, Utos estin Isus, o prophetis, o apo Nazaretis Galileas. And the multitude said, This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth of Galilee. So Jesus now has went from the Mount of Olives and went through the gate into Jerusalem. Our next section, we will see him going into the temple.